Zacks Know Your Options, a weekly overview of unique option strategies and ideas designed to help you beat the market no matter which direction it's going. You ever wonder why some people have more luck with options than others? Well, we're going to find out from Kevin Matras, who is our market technician here, options specialist at Zacks.com. Now, it may seem like people have more luck than others, right, but does luck really have anything to do with proficiency in options trading?
You know, it really doesn't. I believe a lot of it simply has to do with fully understanding how options work. Some people think options are so complex, but they really aren't. I mean, it's not rocket science by any stretch of the imagination. You just have to consider a few more things when you're doing options as opposed to when you're just buying a stock.
Yeah, I've never heard the word luck and options in the same sentence. Timing, maybe.
Right.
But I don't know about luck. But give us some further clarification of this concept.
Well, for example, delta is something that is pretty important when you're doing options. So delta is the percentage the option will move in relationship to the underlying movement of the stock. So your delta will get bigger as your option gets closer to being in the money or gets deeper into the money. Your delta will get smaller as it gets further out of the money. So, for example...
So it's not just an airline anymore.
Yeah, it's not an airline. But check this out. If let's just say that you had bought a stock on, or an option on XYZ, for example, right, and let's say you bought an out-of-the-money option. Let's say it had a couple of months of time, and let's say you paid $500 for that option, and let's also say that it had a delta of 0.5. That means the option is going to move 50% of what the underlying stock does. So, for example, if the stock, let's say, goes up $1, your option should increase by 50 cents. Now let's say that stock, or the option on the stock that you purchased, the stock goes down $3. If your delta is 0.5 or 50%, that means your option has just lost $1.50, right? However, if that stock went down, that option is now further out of the money, which means your delta has fallen as well. So now let's say your delta is 0.4, or in other words, 40%, right? Now that stock goes up $3. You have not gotten back to where you were because 40% of a $3 move is now only $1.20. So you got close to where you were when you first bought the option, but you're still underwater from where you first bought it. What's interesting is that the stock is exactly the same. It went down $3, then it went up $3. Nothing has happened to that stock, but your option is now down $30, or in other words, 6%. And the stock has virtually remained unchanged. And this is something that a lot of people don't really take into consideration when they're buying an option.
So, all right, delta is what we need to focus on.
Delta is one of the things, right.
It's an important thing. So am I understanding this correctly? Stock can go up and down,
right,
and ultimately then end up right back where it was in the beginning.
Right.
But your option on that stock will not necessarily do the same thing.
That is correct. As a matter of fact, if that move happened over a course of, let's say, a couple of weeks or maybe even a month or so, that option in reality probably could have experienced an even larger drop because you would have experienced more time decay. So if the movement of the stock was slow and incremental, another thing that you have to take into consideration is the volatility. Because as volatility goes down, that also will have an impact on the delta. So if volatility does go down, your ability to make that money back after the stock has fallen has also then been reduced or compromised. So not only do you have to look at delta, you also have to look at the volatility. And these are things that people just usually don't pay attention to. So again, getting back to our example, let's say, because we had a 2-month option, now let's say that you literally only have a couple of weeks left before that option expires. That option that you paid $500 for, which was out of the money and is still out of the money, that option in theory could now be worth only $20 or $30. And the reason why that is because your option is comprised of time value. If you have almost no time left on the option, that option is close to expiring, worthless. So even though the stock could be exactly where it was when you bought that option in the first place, heck, it could even be higher than where you bought that option in the first place. The stock could be higher. If you run out of time, even though the stock hasn't done anything, your option could indeed expire worthless. And these are things that you really have to consider when you're in an option.
You know, those are two phrases also used to describe my life a lot. Out of the money and expiring worthless.
Right.
It is interesting, though, and I'm not trying to make light of the whole thing. This is a serious point here that you're bringing out with regard to options trading.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, look, there's a lot of advantages to options, but the point I want to make is that you cannot trade an option solely based on the price movement of the underlying stock. So if you buy a stock and the stock goes down, and then it meanders around for a while and then goes back up, the fact of the matter is if you're doing the stock, you know, you haven't lost anything. You didn't make anything. You didn't lose anything. You could essentially get out from where you were when you bought it in the first place. There's been no change in your account, but it is entirely different when you're doing an option. So when you're doing options, you have to consider the delta. You also have to consider the volatility because that will impact the delta. And of course, you always have to concern yourself with how much time you have left on your option. And the options trader who consistently loses is usually the guy who never takes those things seriously or puts that stuff into consideration.
And who constantly expires worthless.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. I think so many people lose in options. It's not because there's anything insidious with options. It's just that they forget that in option you have to kind of be right, but you have to be right within a certain period of time. And I think the problem is that people are more used to trading stocks. And
that's probably true.
Yeah, I mean, if the stock goes down, like I was just alluding to earlier, if it goes down, a lot of times people will say, oh, I'll stay in, and sometimes they'll hold on to a stock for weeks or months or even years, right? And if the stock goes back up, they haven't lost anything, but it is completely different in options. So if you find yourself saying, and I know this is true because we've all done it, I've done it myself as well, if you find yourself saying, well, the stock has gone down, I might as well hang on to this option, you know, since I still have more time, you'll probably be the guy who loses some of his options premium, and instead he turns out to lose all of his options premium. So, you know, when you're trading options, you have to remember you're trading an option. There are other factors to consider. Now, again, I don't say all of this stuff. I think we've taken a negative tonality here, but I don't say it to neg anybody out. I say this because these things are empowering. If you understand not only the benefits of options, right, because options give you a great deal of leverage, you have a guaranteed limited risk, all of these things are spectacular. But you also have to know the limitations to be able to figure out, you know, if things don't go as planned, what steps to take. And I would tell you that if you are in an option expecting something to happen, and it's not happening, and you see your option go down, change your plan. Consider getting into a different option, or consider buying more time, or consider abandoning the trade altogether and doing something different. So if you can just remember that when you're trading options, the success of options has more to do than just the movement of the underlying stock. And if you can keep that in mind, that can be the difference between somebody losing money chronically in options and making a great deal of money, because options are a fantastic vehicle to use.
All right, all points well made and well taken and duly noted, and all of that there. If you want to check out this piece on options in text form, just go to Zacks.com's homepage and scroll down that homepage, and there's a section there on options that you'll get to. You can click on a live link. It'll take you right to this information in written form. All information brought to you by Kevin Matras himself in an effort to help you know your options. With Kevin, I'm Terry Ruffalo.